Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. It is the very end of March year 2022. This is episode 82. A warm welcome to everybody here today, whether you are new or a returning viewer. It is so sunny today. I am delighted. It has been so gray, and I don't mind a gray day. I don't mind a cloudy day, but sometimes when the mood is just not great, it doesn't really help. We had like a little bit of a warm above average temperature few days, and then it plummeted to below average temperatures, and it was in the single digits yesterday morning. And with wind chill, I believe it was like 1 degree Fahrenheit or something the other day. it's just been a little chilly. And this morning felt so much nicer outside. I don't actually remember what the temperature was. It might have been hovering around freezing, but it felt really good. I think the sun just brightened everybody's mood this morning, and it is shining pretty strong through the windows right now, and it'll shift. So lighting in this episode will shift as usual. I'm just excited to be here. And you may have noticed, if you have been watching for a while or follow me along on Instagram for some time, but I got a haircut. So the last time I had gotten my haircut was February year 2020, and we all know what happened after February 2020. Everything shut down, and so I generally don't get my hair cut very often anyway, maybe once a year at most. But this time I went 2 years, and when I had my hair cut previously, I did donate my hair. I think I had 8 to 10 inches cut off that time. And this time, since it had grown even longer, I think it was nearly down to my waist maybe, or maybe it was, the longest layer may have been to my waist. But I had about 12 inches cut off, I think. And I think the minimum for donation is 8 inches, and they usually have to take another inch or so because the ends might not be even, or if they're damaged, or things like that. But I think I had around 12 inches cut, and some areas maybe more just with shorter layering and stuff, but it feels so nice. It's a great refresh. It's springy, and it just feels really good. For some time, I actually used to keep my hair short all the time, so it isn't like a big drastic change for me. I've had it shorter than this, and it's just nice. I have a lot of hair, and to keep it short means less shampoo, easier, quicker to dry, and I am someone who takes showers at night, not in the mornings, so I always end up blow drying it before going to bed because I do not like to sleep on a wet head. And yeah, it just dries so much faster when there's so much less hair. But it feels really good. I love it. It's just nice to have a refresh. And yeah, my older daughter, she's 9, and her hair is definitely down to her waist, and I've been the only one trimming her hair, both of my girls, and I'm no hairstylist for sure. I'm just like cutting pretty evenly across, not all at once. I mean, I separate it out, but I'm definitely not a hairstylist. But I told her about hair donations and what it goes to, and she said, oh, I want to do that. So right now we have an appointment scheduled end of May for her to get her hair cut and donate it, and yeah, so that's exciting. My youngest one has spent a lot of time growing her hair out. She actually didn't really have much hair until she was like 3 years old, and now she's 6, and I've trimmed it, a few times since, but yeah, her hair, she's been working very hard growing her hair. But yeah, so things are going pretty well over here, aside from spring slowly coming, which is expected. We, often get snow still in April, sometimes even like the first week of May. Our risk of frost is usually over by early mid-May, so that's usually when we can start planting in our garden, not earlier than that because then everything will just die. I feel like a lot of times we get excited as soon as it's really warm, and then we're thinking, oh yeah, we'll just plant, we'll take the risk, and then everything dies. So it's best to just wait until that last frost risk has passed. If you are new here, my videos do include closed captioning. It's that CC button, and things that I talk about will all be in the show notes in the description box below this video. Sometimes there's like a little arrow or show more or something like that to click on. I try to provide links to designers, makers, yarn, or whatever that I talk about. If somebody has a website to access all their patterns and things like that, I will link that. I do use Ravelry, so for my projects I have Ravelry project pages for those, and that will be listed separately. And I think that's all for that part. yeah. In my mug today, I have, it's actually really hot still, so I can't drink it. But in my beautiful mug here, I have cha, and it is caffeinated, but I'm feeling the need for it today. I stayed up way too late last night reading. I think I've mentioned previously that once I get started on a book, it is really hard for me to put it down. I think this year so far, let's see, it's the end of March, I've read maybe 9, 11 books. Yeah, I just have a really hard time putting down something once I start reading it. And I will talk about that, what I've been reading in a later section. I have an Eats and Reads sections at the end of this. And oh, also, in the description box, I have timestamps for like different chapters in an episode. That way, if you're watching it in parts, in case it is really long, or maybe, I don't know, you're just like skipping around or whatever, that way you can find stuff easier. It's easier for me too. So I'll have like a finished project section, works in progress section, and Eats and Reads section. But yeah, I'm trying to decide if I need to close this blind here or not. It's definitely kind of moving in. I think if I stay back here, maybe we're okay. If I show things back here, I think we'll be okay. Well, anyway, I will adjust as needed. So let's get started. All right, I think we're gonna start with finished projects. And the first one I would love to talk about is the one that I am wearing. Now it may seem like every episode this year so far, I have started out with a new sweater. Might not be wrong. I mean, I don't really remember at this point, but this sweater I actually knit in February, but the release date wasn't until, I think, middle of March, so it just didn't really line up with a previous episode to talk about it yet. But yeah, so here we are. I think we're like 3 weeks from the previous episode. Not too hot now. Yeah, I think it's been 3 weeks since we last chatted. So I'm looking at my pile over here and there's quite a bit to talk about, but I'm pretty excited. So this pullover is the Stripes of Joy pullover by Tiff Nealon. I'm gonna stand up a little bit so you can see, hopefully. It is, I knit the standard length. There are some eyelet details along the hem and along the yoke here, and it is full length. I think some people found the sleeve length to be a little bit long, but for me it is perfect, and I didn't make any modifications. I don't think I made any modifications at all for the entire sweater. There were 2 options for the full length. I think you could do like a cropped length or a standard length. And I don't think this one had an option for sleeve length. She often has patterns with like maybe a short sleeve length or a bracelet length or different lengths, but of course you can always modify that part yourself if you wished. And I think there were several testers that knit short sleeves. It is a worsted weight pattern, so for some people, maybe if you are in a climate where you don't have winter 7 months out of the year, maybe a short sleeve version could be more versatile, especially for layering and things like that. But I knit the full length and I absolutely love it. It is so comfortable. Tiff used the Purl Soho linen quill worsted. I think it leans a little closer to Aran weight. It's definitely a heavier worsted weight, and I really wanted to knit it in that yarn as well. If you've watched previous episodes, you know that I am a big fan of Purl Soho's linen quill and fingering weight, and I really wanted to try the worsted weight. And back in, I can't remember if it was November or December, there was a sale, a really big sale for, I don't know if it was specifically for this yarn or for all of Purl Soho's lines or what it was, but she had shared some sneak peeks of this sweater, and I knew I wanted to knit it. And I got yarn for it on sale, and I absolutely love these colors together. I've really been feeling the pink and gold colors together lately. I mean, I guess I always have it. I'm that person that has like a favorite color, but it only inches out slightly above everything else. And honestly, it's all about color combinations for me. I love playing with color, and when certain colors sing together, it's so magical. There's this synergistic energy that comes out of colors that just meld together, and I just love it. And so I decided to go with a gold and pink theme here, and yeah, it's so nice. So the Pearl Soho linen quill worsted, it's 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen, 164 yards for 100 grams. So I feel like most worsted weights are closer to 200 yards for 100 grams. So at 164 yards for 100 grams, I feel like that's closer to Aran weight, but I don't know. Let's see, I went down a needle size for everything, typical of how I follow Tiff's patterns, just because I know our gauge is just a little bit different, and she's a tighter knitter than I am, so I just know for all of her patterns, I just go down a needle size. And so, I knit size 2. This pattern comes in, I think, 9 or 10 sizes. Her patterns are all size inclusive. And for size 2, I have a finished chest circumference of, I think is 35.5 inches, which gives me like 3 to 4 inches of positive ease. And of course you can block it wider or however way you need to. I find this super comfortable for me. And I think for some people, if they picked a size that was bigger than her recommended ease range, you end up with too much fabric in this yoke section. So the amount of ease I picked is within her recommended range, so I don't find a bunch of extra fabric here in the yoke section. So I did have a little bit of yarn left over. As usual, I was playing slight yarn chicken with some colors. And if you know me or if I'm following along, you may know I do this quite often. It's not because I like the thrill of it, but it's more so because I don't like a lot of waste. And I don't really love calling it waste either, because I will use my remaining yarns, but I would prefer a project to use up as much of whatever yarn that I am purchasing as possible, or purchase as close to the amount that I need as possible, just so I don't have extras then to, have to then find projects for. So it's either like you find yarn for projects or you find projects for your yarn, right? So there's like a balance between the two, and I'm always doing a little bit of both, but preferably, especially if it's with like a specialty or a special yarn that's a little different than others, then I may not be combining them with other stuff as readily. So I just want to make sure that I use buy what I need, I guess, basically. So here's the tag for the yarn. And it is a non-superwash yarn. And I'm going to show you the colors that I used. So this one is Pale Oats, and it's kind of like a creamy white. And this one I did start with 2 skeins. It's still like the striping, the thinner stripe color between the larger color blocks, and you use it for the neckline and for the body hem. And then I have Bright Flamingo here. It is a fluorescent coral color. And that one I ended up also having for my cuffs, which I love. And she does have a color sequence chart that you can follow, which helped me plan out what order I wanted my colors in, because I did think about, okay, what color do I want closest to my face? What color do I want ending my sleeve cuffs? So that was really helpful. Next color, I have turmeric, so you can see that I have just a little left of the turmeric. I think it's like 15 grams maybe. It's great for color work. Now this peony color was the one that I was a little worried about. Now my amounts that I used did end up pretty close to what she had estimated, and I know her estimations have a little bit of a buffer in there too. I can't remember what percentage, but this is all I have left of peony pink. It's a very light, beautiful pink, and I think I have like 8 grams left of this, so that worked out really well for me. And then my final color is this chestnut red, It's kind of a heathery maroon. And I love, 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 love how this turned out. So this one I have, I think, the most of my contrast colors remaining. I have like 47 grams of this one. And that helped me plan too, because I knew I wanted these brighter colors, let me hold them up, to be the main parts of my sweater, and then I wanted this darker contrast to be the fewest stripes, because it has higher contrast, which means it will stand out more just even on its own. And then so I didn't want as many stripes to be with that. So I think in the body there's just 2 stripes with that high contrast one, and the same with in the sleeves. So yeah, as always, I find Tiff's patterns and pattern layout very clear for me. The font I find easy to read. I feel like there's good negative spacing in there, so all of the text isn't jumbled together. I've had patterns before, which, you know, unfortunately you don't know until you purchase the pattern, where I have a really hard time reading it. Like the text, the font is just not great. I can't just glance and see where I'm at. But I find Tiff's patterns, and I've tested many of her patterns, and I do that because 1, I admire her as a designer and a person, and 2, I find her patterns easy to follow, and I don't have to do a ton of thinking because it's written out for me, and I find it easy to follow. So I recommend this pattern. It is top down, circular, yoke. You put your sleeve stitches on waste yarn or cable, or, you know, on hold, and then you finish knitting, and then you go to the body or to the sleeves, or you could do the sleeves first and then finish the body after you do the yoke, however way works for you. And yeah, I think that's it. The next finished project I'd like to share with you is the grain shawl that I knit for our daughter. Now this project, it's a free pattern by Tin Can Knits, and I started it May 2021. So it has been almost a year. It isn't a particularly long project, like as in big. Oops, that pencil. It isn't like a big project. I just had it on the needles and ready to go when I felt like working on it. I don't know what took me so long, but I don't need any excuses, right? It's fine. It'll get done when it gets done. So here it is. Oh, it is so cheerful. It is a symmetrical triangle knit top down, and the yarns I used are both dyed by Kristina of Teal Torch Knits. I held 2 sock yarns double. It's a light fingering weight, so 463 yards for 100 grams. And I don't have yarns with me because the minis that I used to create this neon gradient, I knit each one until it ran out, and then I held it with I still have some of that, but I think I put it away. It's like a cream yarn with neon speckles, and it reminds me of confetti cake. But yeah, I held those 2 together to create this beautiful DK weight triangular shawl, and she absolutely loves it. It is all garter, so you knit it flat, but using knit stitches on both sides. There's 0 purling. You start with a garter tab, so there's a garter border along the edge, and then the eyelets are what create the increases. So on one side, you end up with 4 increases with the eyelets here along this garter edging, and then you have your center here, and then an eyelet on both sides, and then another eyelet on that other end. So on one side, you'll do those 4 increases, on the other side is just knit even. So yeah, I think this size is really easy for her to wear. I ended up using, let's see, a total of, I didn't do my total here, so let's see, it's almost 300 grams. Yeah, that's right. Almost 300 grams of sock yarn total, and I used a US 8. I believe in the pattern It's written for a bunch of different weights. So there might be like a fingering weight, maybe a DK weight, maybe a worsted weight. I can't really remember. But I think the suggested needle size for the weight of yarn I was doing was maybe a US 7, but I found that too dense. I wanted a looser gauge, so I went up to a US 8, which is a 5mm. But yeah, so I did join my mini skeins of yarn using a magic knot ball. And there's lots of tutorials for that on YouTube, so you can just search magic knot ball. And the reason I felt comfortable doing that is because I was holding my yarn double. So if that knot came undone for any reason, the entire project wouldn't unravel. I know some people will put like fray check on it or something like that. I did not bother with that, but I also didn't cut some of the ends super close. I think there's one here that's sticking out. I just let them be, and I can cut them later if I want to, but I don't know if I would feel comfortable using the magic knot ball method with yarn that was just held on its own, like in a sweater or something like that. I don't think I would do it, especially with a superwash yarn. So this is a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon yarn. I just feel like it might be too slippery. And then with a non-superwash, I don't think I'd do that either, because there's so many other methods like split spicing and stuff that you can do that's pretty secure. So I think it worked well for this project, and I don't really mind weaving in ends now either, so I don't think it would have bothered me to knit in all the ends from all the minis. I don't remember how many there were, maybe 8 or 9 different colors, but the magic knot ball worked okay in this project. So, and what else? I wanted to say one more thing. The minis that I used, I actually have used in other socks already, so it was nice to be able to use them in other projects as I wanted to, and then also just completely use them all up in this one project. And yeah, so our daughter has been wearing this, and she has another one that I gave her that I had knit previously that she wears to school all the time, and so she says this one she likes to keep at home. So yeah, that's this one. I think we'll go on to socks next. I have 2 pairs of socks to share with you. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. I believe I shared these on my previous episode. That was, again, 3 weeks ago. And I had maybe the cuff and like maybe a stripe or 2 done at that point. I can't quite remember. And these are all knit in yarns dyed by Julie of Sweet Sparrow Knits, and they were from the 2020 yarn advent calendar that I purchased from her. And these aren't all the yarns in that advent. They came in 10-gram minis, but I pulled out ones that I thought felt springy to me when combined together. And this cuff has a little bit of gold stellina in it, so it's a little bit sparkly. And so I decided I wanted the heel a little bit sparkly too, so the heel also has gold stellina in it. I'm not sure if the sun is catching on it. It's kind of tricky, but yeah. Oh, maybe the cuff is a silver stellina. Oh no, maybe it is gold. I think they're both gold. Of course the gold one looks more gold because it's on gold yarn. Well, anyway, so I really like all these colors together. I knit them on 9-inch circulars, and let's see. I cast on 60 stitches. I have an 8-inch foot circumference, 9¼ inch foot length, and I wear a US 7 women's shoe. And I share that information to give you reference for your own socks or if you're knitting socks for somebody else. Of course, your gauge may vary. So I use a US 1 or 2.25mm needle. You may need to go up or down from that. Your gauge may be 7 stitches per inch, which is on the looser end. I think on average, a lot of socks are written for 8 stitches per inch. maybe you're tighter, so maybe you're 9 stitches per inch. You can change your needle size, you can change the number of stitches you cast on. I feel like if you want a denser fabric, which means your socks will wear hardier, like wear longer because of the denser fabric, then change your stitch count instead of changing the fabric density. Unless your fabric density is too loose, then I would recommend changing your needle size to get a denser fabric. Does that make sense? I find a US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needle works really well for me, especially for like light fingering weight yarns or just like a standard fingering weight yarn. If I go heavier into like closer to sport weight, then I'll increase my needle size because otherwise the fabric density is way too tight. So I did 60 stitches. I will knit toe up or cuff down, but my general preference is cuff down. And I did, I think, 20 rounds of 1x1 ribbing on these socks. I think I usually do about 20 rounds, but yeah, and I have a digital scale that goes down to like 0.2 grams, and so I can get a pretty accurate weight of my before and after, and that really helps me with yarn management. So like I mentioned, I started with 10-gram minis, and I wanted to figure out how I could use them in my socks so that I could have matching stripes throughout and not run out. So I did 8 rounds per stripe, and I don't think all these yarns were light fingering. I think some of them were 463 yards for 100 grams, some of them were 400, so the amount of yarn that I would use up would be slightly different for the striping too. And I actually, on one of them, I think it's this one, I ran out of this mauve yarn at the final round. So I actually had this Dusty Rose Mondim yarn that matched really, really well. And so I just subbed that in for this final round on here. I don't know if you can even tell. I can tell only because I feel like the twist is slightly different, but the color is very, very close. Like, so close, I'm pretty sure that you can't tell. So that's the only one that I ran out on, and I was pretty close. I was running really close on these, and I think part of it was that the minis actually, most of them, I used what, eight colors, and only 2 of them were actually 10 grams. The rest were 9. None were less than 9, but the rest were like 9 grams or 9.5 grams, but I think that's where I kind of ran into it because I was going so close to all of them. So yeah, and then let's see, I did a shadow wrap heel, and I did my heel in the middle of a stripe, and I think that's it. But I love them. I think they're so comfortable and they're fun to wear, and they are kind of that soft spring, like coming out of the mud zone spring type of socks. The next pair of socks I'd like to share with you are my intertwined socks. Let me take these ones off the blocker and switch them out. So these socks I knit out of my Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad sock set, and that is a yarn subscription that I have that's monthly. So each month I get a surprise sock set. Candace of the Farmer's Daughter Fibers has this really fun sock squad that rotates through 3 different yarn bases. They are all superwash, but one is a superwash merino nylon 75-25 blend, one is superwash merino nylon 80-20 blend, and the other one is a superwash merino yak nylon, which is a, is it 70-20-10? That adds up to 100, right? I think that is it. But yes, so this one is the Highwood sock base, which is the 400 yards for a 100 gram base, and it's 80-20. And as soon as I saw the yarn, I knew I had to do a contrasting like a color work set of socks because it's such high contrast. So this pattern I modified, but it's the intertwined socks by Emma of Bloom and Create, and I changed up the cuff and I changed up the heel flap, but I did the rest, meaning I guess I did the color work per her pattern. But the color, this mini is like a very dark, it's like a blue-black. So I feel like blacks come in shades. And there are grayer blacks, like more charcoaly black, there's warmer blacks, there's bluer blacks, there's greener blacks, there's just different subtle like undertones to black, and this one's definitely a blue-black. So if I'm looking at it in like a shadier or like darker, or if I'm working on it at night, it looks black. But during the day, or if there's any sunlight, there's a hint of blue to it, and it kind of reads like a navy black. So I'm not sure how it's showing up on camera here, but regardless, the contrast is awesome. The main color is this tan with very kind of soft watercolory speckling. They're not like a crisp speckle, but like a very soft speckle, and there's kind of reds and oranges, a little bit of blues in there. And the cuff, I did a fold over peekaboo cuff. I have a tutorial for that. This one I just knit a little bit longer than the one that I have the tutorial for, but I always will do 4 rounds different between the contrast and the main. And so here, usually my contrast is on the inside, but because of how the color work starts and the cuff being the contrast color, I used my main color as the peekaboo fold over part, and then switch to the contrast color to then continue. Now, something interesting about this is that when I was knitting my contrasting or my color work chart, I initially held my dominant color as my this mini here in my left hand, and it just overpowered it. It just didn't come out the right way. And so I ripped it out and I started over and held what is the main color in the sock set as the dominant color in my left hand. So I knit color work using 2 hands. So dominant color is in the left hand, and the other color is in my right hand. And once I switched it, it was so much better. It was so drastically different. And I think it's because I had to think of it as which one is being, well, no, because I feel like you would still, or at least I would still think the contrast in this color work should be this contrast color, the dark blue-black. But for whatever reason, it just didn't work out that way, and it worked much better to use this main color as the dominant color in the contrasting. I keep calling it the contrasting in the color work chart. Sorry. The only thing I switched for the heel flap was she did an Eye of Partridge heel. I didn't feel like messing with that. Eye of Partridge heel is like a 4-row repeat, and I just didn't want to do that. So I did a slip stitch heel flap, which is a 2-row repeat, and yeah. So for these socks, let me see if there was anything else I wanted to share about it. I used a US 1 2.25 millimeter for the main fabric and the cuffs and the heels and toes and everything, just for the contrasting. Here I go again. Why do I keep saying contrasting? For the color work portion, I went up half a needle size. I went to US 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter. And it's because anytime you knit color work, there's going to be a little less stretch. And since they're socks, you want to make sure they fit like over your heel part. So this part, the way to have a little more give to it is to go up a needle size. If you find yourself a very tight color work knitter, you might even want to go up a full needle size to like a US 2 if you were starting out at a US 1. But yeah, they fit really well and very comfortably. And I do have yarn remaining, so there's yarn remaining to knit another pair of socks. I think for my contrast color, I only have like 6 grams left. but for my main yarn I have 48 grams left. So could definitely use it on a pair of shorties, or maybe just save it for some other project somewhere down the line. Okay, the last finished projects I'd like to share with you are sewing related. Okay, let's show you this one first. I have been sewing since I was a little girl, and I've been teaching my kids too. Not the youngest one yet, but I've been teaching the older one how to use a sewing machine. They both know how to sew by hand, but I feel like you have more control when you're sewing by hand. But over the weekend I was teaching our older one how to use a sewing machine, and she's both excited and terrified of the machine. But it's yeah, it was really fun to teach her about, you know, right sides, wrong sides, and how we hide the raw seams on the inside. So you want to face right sides together, and talking about pedal pressure and how that guides your needle speed and all of those things. And yeah, so that was really fun. And I did a little sewing myself over the last 3 weeks. Here is a really springy project bag. Can you sense a theme here between the pink and gold? And if you're new here, I do not sell my project bags. These are for personal use, and I don't follow a pattern. I just do whatever I want to. But there are lots of patterns out there on YouTube, and Google is your best friend. So you can find something there if that is something you're interested in. Or maybe you have a local sewing shop and they have classes. So check them out. But anyway, so I have a canvas box bottom here, drawstring channel, cotton webbing for handles, canvas pockets on the inside, and yeah, I think it's so cute. And I even have yarn paired with it for future socks already. It is Knit Picks Hawthorne Fingering in Peach Melba Speckle. And it's so pretty. It's kind of a, I don't know if it's an undyed with the speckling. It looks a little warmer than undyed, but there's kind of like a warm yellow, reddish orange. I think they would knit up to be beautiful socks. So I have that in this bag for future socks. The other one I made, oh, I love it. And I think I have a sneak peek of it in the vlog section in the beginning of this episode. Dun 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 dun! Oh, I love this patchwork bag. I can't remember if the squares I cut out, I think they were 2.5 by 2.5 inches. I think so. And I was just playing around with colors. I was inspired by recent sunsets and sunrises, and I just love purple, lavender, ochre, mauve, those colors together. I feel like they really resonate. I have a kind of a little bit of a theme here with suns and moons and floral, nature-y stuff, but yeah, that's just how I am. On the back, I have this beautiful floral purple fabric. And on the inside, I have horseshoes. It's a lavender fabric with horseshoes, and I kept the selvage edge from the pattern, or not from the pattern, from the fabric. And I use it because, well, it's fabric that can be used. It doesn't have to be cut out. And I think it's kind of fun because it says what the fabric is, and it says Lucky Charms. And I have a little ring sewed in here, a little jump ring sewn in that I can attach my progress keepers on. This one I didn't do a pocket because it's a little bit smaller, but I did pair yarn in here for future socks as well. Look at this beautiful skein of yarn. It's a warm brown, and it has lavender and orange and tan streaked through it, so I think it'll knit up really pretty. It's a 50-gram skein of sourdough sock by Kim of Kim Dyes Yarn. The sourdough sock base is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon, and it's 400 yards for 100 grams, so 200 yards in this 50-gram. And I have paired it with leftover yarn from my A Knitter's Homestead Yarn Advent 2021. This was leftover from the main skein. I had knit this into DK weight socks, the High Desert socks, and this is what I have remaining. So it's a pinkish mauve color with silver stellina, and I will use it for, I think, heel toes cuffs maybe? I don't know. We'll see how far it goes and where I need it, but I have it all in this project bag, and I'm excited to work on that at some point. On to works in progress. I think we're gonna continue on socks, and those are in this beautiful springy summery project bag that I sewed last year. I adore it. It has flowers all over it. I love flowers. This pair of socks is for my daughter, the same one that I knit the grain shawl for. So the socks that I've knit for the older one, once she outgrows them, which kids' feet grow quickly, they go down to the younger one. And so I have basically stopped knitting socks for the younger one because she will get the ones that the older one was wearing like pretty quickly soon after. So it doesn't really make a ton of sense time-wise for me to knit for the younger one. Yeah, so I knit new pairs for the older one, and when the younger one gets them, they're new to her anyway, and she's delighted to have them. We decided to go with a springy palette. I had her go through some minis and leftovers and see kind of what she was feeling. We were feeling soft pastels, and so that's what we did. So I'm gonna hold up what I have started so far, but I like to knit my socks 2 at a time on their own needles. I've mentioned before, and I'll say it again, it is not the most economical way to knit socks, so you don't have to do it this way if you don't want to or for whatever other reason, but this is the way I like to do it because I don't get second sock syndrome. I feel like the most economical way would be, you know, I suppose if you wanted to knit 2 at a time on one set of long needles, like a 32-inch, because then you only have to purchase 1 needle and you still get to knit 2 at a time. But I tried that, and granted I only tried it a couple times, but I didn't like it. I felt lopsided, and the yarn management was just not fun for me, and if I just wanted to take like a small project out, I would still have to take all of it versus just like 1 sock. So anyway, that's my thing. So here they are! Aren't they so cute? So I did the fold over cuff, and again I have a tutorial for how I like to do them, and I will link to that in the description box below. And I decided to use up this beautiful yellow yarn. I think I used up the entirety of it. I just had a little bit left and I used it all up. And then I have this lavender, soft lavender color with it, and then we followed it with a peachy pink. And then the next color I have wound up is this dreamy color with soft washes of light blue, pale pink, and lavender. And I haven't decided yet if I'm going to knit the same number of stripes for this one or do like a longer color block and maybe knit the heel into it. My daughter doesn't love particularly long socks. If they are long, she just folds them down. So I was thinking maybe I would use more of this one because I have a full 20 grams of it. And she really, really likes the color, like the colors going on in this one. And since it's a little busier than a tonal or solid, I was thinking maybe giving it more space on the sock for it. So that is going to come next. And her foot circumference is 7 inches, and most of the yarns I think we have in here, I think all of them actually, might be light fingering at 463 yards for 100 grams. I did cast on 56 stitches for her. In the past I was casting on 48 or 52. Sometimes I was using a slightly bigger needle just so there was a little more stretch since, again, kids' feet grow. But it's mostly they're growing long ways, not necessarily width-wise, but if I knit a ribbed sock, it just gives me a little more wiggle room. But for these, I decided just to knit them stockinette without any ribbing, and I'm using a US 1, 2.25 millimeter, and yeah, so I'm casting on 56 stitches, which might give her no ease, but I think that'll be okay because she also said, Mom, it's okay if you knit them a little bit bigger, that way I can grow into them a little bit and so I don't have to pass them on right away. So I think this will work out, I think, okay. And yeah, she just loves wearing hand knit socks. I believe they're the only socks she's been wearing all winter. So yeah, she has quite a growing sock collection knit by Mom. Let's see, what's the next work in progress to share? We will go on to a test knit. Yeah, we'll go on to a test knit. This is the Go Gently cardigan, and the designer is Amy of Amy Sure Makes. And I'm not going to tell you too much in detail about it because it is a test knit, but I wanted to show you a sneak peek of it. And it's a pattern that's scheduled to release, I think, end of April-ish, somewhere in there, so keep an eye out for that. And the yarns I'm using Pearl Soho Linen Quill in the fingering weight, which is 437 yards for 100 grams. And the color I'm using is Peony Pink, which I can't show you because, alas, I ran out. Now, I do play Yarn Chicken a lot, but I don't like to call it Yarn Chicken because can you call it Yarn Chicken if you know that you might run out, like from the beginning of the project? I don't know. I think I prefer to call it calculated yarn management because I can make changes in body length, in sleeve length, or whatever I need to do in order to maximize my yardage, right? Well, in this case, I knew I would probably run out unless I made drastic changes, and I didn't want to make drastic changes because it's a test knit, but I did shorten the body length just a little bit, and I think if I was able to rip out my swatch and reuse that yarn, I might not cut as close. And I also had to re-knit one of the button bands because I misread the instructions and didn't do it right. But because this non-superwash yarn is held with another non-superwash yarn, this fluff here, this fluff is by Knit Picks. Let me see if I have a tag here. It's called Alpaca Bloom. It's a lace weight. And it is discontinued. So the good thing is I did not run out of the discontinued yarn because that I was a little bit worried about, but because it's lace weight, it kind of goes farther, and so I wasn't as nervous about this one. But yeah, so good thing I didn't run out of the discontinued yarn, but it's a pain to rip out. Not so much that it takes time, but because it's kind of knotted together, knotted may not be the right word, felted together, I don't know what the word is. It's like gripped to each other. I can't even pull it out because the stitches are like stuck together. So for that button band that I had to redo, I ended up just cutting it off, which is fine because you're picking up stitches anyway, so it was not a big deal. So I lost a little bit of yarn there, just a little bit. And then the swatch I can't rip out either, so I lost a little bit there. So I think if I was able to use those yarns, my calculations would have been actually spot on, like maybe a gram. I don't even know if a gram to spare, but anyway, I ran out is the end of the story. But I have a wonderful friend who is saving me and going to send me a little bit of yarn so I can finish my test knit, which is wonderful. Are you ready to see this beauty? Oh, I'm so excited about it. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, it's so lovely. Look at this ruffle. Oh, it's so beautiful. So the sleeves are knit flat, which is my first time knitting sleeves flat, I think. And so I still have to seam this. And so this sleeve is done. It's this sleeve that has like just a little bit left to go, a few inches left to go, and I can't finish. So I will finish it when the yarn arrives. And I have buttons to sew on after I block it. I have buttonholes in this button band done already. And it's so light and it's so fluffy, and it's going to be the perfect addition to spring. Here's what the back looks like. I just love this soft pink, and I think it's going to be so wearable and easy to throw on over anything and match with stuff that I have in my closet. And I think it's going to be great with pants or dresses or skirts or anything. I like pieces that are versatile. I don't like pieces that you can only wear with one outfit. And it doesn't mean you can't have like a statement piece, because I feel like statement pieces can also mix and match. But I do prefer pieces that I can wear with multiple things, and I think this is it. So that is it for this one, and when I finish, I won't share on the next episode because I imagine I'll record at least once or twice before the pattern releases. Maybe it's just once before the pattern releases. It's the end of March. This releases like end of April-ish maybe. So anyway, stay tuned. Next work in progress I'd like to share with you is another pullover. I don't think I talked about it in the previous episode. I think I cast on afterwards. This is the Wild Poppy pullover by Tiff Nealon, and it is one that I test knit the previous summer. And while I was knitting that one, I already had plans to knit another one, and this is yarn actually I have had on hand already. And I wasn't actually sure if this was the color combination I wanted to do or a different color combination. I'm actually thinking of another one in the future, but it is a fingering weight sweater that you can knit short sleeved or bracelet length, cropped or standard length for the body. And it is size inclusive. Let me see here. I think I must have it on another page that I didn't print out. Yeah, I don't have it printed out on the other sizes here, but there are 9 sizes available, and I am knitting the size 2 for, I think, again, 3 to 4 inches of positive ease. The yarns I'm using are the Yarn Collective Fleurville 4-ply. It's 100% superwash merino wool. And this one is at 382 yards for 100 grams. And I'm using the colorway Delphinium. And then my contrast color, I don't think I have a tag for, but it is Vice by Less Traveled Yarn. And I've used this in multiple other projects. It is a beautiful, bright, fluorescent, cool-toned hot pink. And, oh, here's what the Delphinium yarn looks like. It's a blue that is tonal and it's not really variegated, but there are definitely darks and lights. And I am alternating skeins because the different cakes are slightly different. Some have more dark, some have more light, so I'm alternating 2 skeins here in the body. I have slip for the sleeves. It is a top-down circular yoke, like I like to knit. It has interesting color work on the yoke, like I like to knit. And it is knit at a pretty loose gauge, and I did go down needle size as usual for when I am knitting Tiff's patterns. Let's see, okay, here's the front. Here it is. Oh, it's so lovely. I wanted a springy knit on the needles, and so that's why I cast this on. The only thing I've changed so far, aside from needle size, is I knit the neckline ribbing, I think double the width. Because it's not like a really wide neckline, but I wanted to bring it in just a little bit, so I doubled that. Doubled the, how long to knit that ribbing for. And there are short rows in the back to raise the back a little bit higher. And you can see that the dark and light here in the body, there's like a little bit of striping going on, but not heavily pooling if I had used just one skein at a time. So I am alternating, and I love how it's turning out. I haven't quite decided what I want to do about sleeve length yet, but chances are I will make it elbow length sleeves like I did for my first one, because since this is superwash merino, if I make it long sleeve, I think it'll get like stretched out at the elbow area. And I think I'm gonna make it elbow length sleeve, and then it won't be as heavy on that, on the sleeves pulling it down either. I mean, it is fingering weight yarn, so it's not gonna be heavy, but I don't know, just thinking out loud here. As far as length goes, I think I'm gonna knit to the standard length like I did my first one. So I guess I'm just making the same as my first one. I did think about knitting it cropped at first so I could layer it over like dresses or high-waisted skirts, but I think I'll do standard length. That way I can still just wear it with anything, like pants and stuff. But I don't know, to be determined. I don't think I'm at the body length yet where I have to make that decision on whether or not I'm going to go cropped or standard. But I think I'm getting close. So we shall see. Maybe this one will be done by the next time I sit down to chat with you. But yeah, I love it. So I promise I'm not going to go into details about this one because I chat about it in like every episode since I, well, started my first one last summer. It is a half and half triangles wrap by Pearl Soho, and I'm gonna share it with you anyway because I like sharing the progress on it. And for other half and half triangle wrap enthusiasts, like myself, I think it's fun to see people's projects and colors, and I don't get tired of it. So the first color I've used is Honey Pink. This is Pearl Soho's Linen Quill. And this is what I have remaining of the first color, and I will be using it in a future project. Second color is Turmeric Yellow, this beautiful golden yellow color. And I'm on the first cake of it. I cast on 230 stitches, which is in between the small and the large. And here is my progress. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, isn't it lovely? It's gonna go so well with this sweater too. So pretty. So last time I had just joined my second color, and the beginning of the second half goes so quickly because the rows are still pretty short. It's when you get to like the last, I feel like 60 or 80 stitches that you're like, oh, this is taking forever. And partially it's because you just want it done because it feels like it's so close, and yet when you get to that point, it seems so far away. But you get the momentum going, I feel like, at the color change because it's a milestone to change that color, and the rows are short in that beginning part. So it's really exciting. But yeah, here's where I am with this. And I still absolutely love it. Have you knit one? Do you plan on knitting one? Would you never knit one? Which is also okay. If you are knitting one or have knit one, I'd love to hear about your color combinations in the comments below. It's so fun to talk about color and color combinations. All right, we are at the end. So that is all the projects I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about them and doing a little share and tell. I would love to hear what you've been working on or what is bringing you joy or frustrating you in your projects. Sometimes projects need to sit in timeout for a little bit so that we can come back to them with fresh eyes. I set down my tea here. So there are two books. One I read earlier and the other one I read all at once. So this is the Eva Evergreen Semi-Magical Witch. I don't know if you can call it a series if there's just two books, a duo. Why can't I think of what two books are called? I mean, there's a sequel, but is there a name for when there's two books? Like if there's three books, it's a trilogy. If it's two books, what's it called? If you know, comment below. I can't think of what it is. Anyway, my husband had purchased this book actually for our daughter to read, and she's someone that reads a lot of books at the same time, and she just hasn't gone through this one yet. I believe the reading level is like middle school age, and it's really fun read. If you like sci-fi fantasy, like magic, witches, that kind of thing, then you might really like this book. I really enjoyed it. Eva Evergreen is trying to earn her ranks as a novice witch, and I think she's like 12, I don't think she's quite 13 in the book. I think she's 12. And she is trying to prove herself, and she meets all these different people along her way, and it's a fun story. So I had read this one, and then we don't have the second one on hand, but I borrowed it from the library. I think it's going to be too shiny to show on here. Anyway, so the second one is called Eva Evergreen and the Cursed Witch. And once I started reading, of course, I couldn't put it down. The first one has more, I think, character building in it, and then the second one is much more action-packed, and it goes fast. There's basically something happening like constantly. And yeah, I couldn't put it down. It's like 300 plus pages, I think. 350 something. 356 pages. And I just needed to read the entire thing. And it is a fun read. I recommend it. I mean, I don't feel like I'm much of a book critic. If I don't like something, I'd probably stop early on. But yeah, it's juvenile fiction, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun read. The other book that I have been slowly reading, and not slowly because I can't get into it, but slow because there's so much to think about. I feel like this book, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, is a book that you should savor if you're gonna read it. Like, I read a chapter and then I really think about it. I feel like there's so many things I want to highlight in it. I haven't highlighted in it because I feel like I don't want to ruin the book. But I feel like there's a lot of things that I would quote from it. And I was sticking little tabs in there. Actually, you know, I have like cards, you know, the business cards that sometimes like yarn dyers will put in. This one's Kim Dyes Yarn. I use them as bookmarks. I don't know. What do you use with them? What do you do with them? This one is a tag from Hello Lavender, from one of her sets of like progress keepers. And then this one is a bookmark. This one's actually a bookmark. It's a wooden one. And it's from a sock yarn club by Shoba of Serendipitous Wool and Robin of Birch Hollow Fibers. And I don't know if they're still doing it, but it was based on children's books that featured BIPOC authors and characters in the books. So yeah, I'm using that as my bookmark, and I'm just really enjoying this book. This one is nonfiction. It talks about the importance of indigenous wisdom and their relationship with the natural world, and how that the juxtaposition between that relationship with the natural world and the language and the culture that comes with it, and then looking on, I don't want to say the other side because it's not necessarily like that dichotomy, but there's definitely big differences in the scientific world, like the Western scientific world and how we study plants. And I use we as like a collective we, you know, like how you're taught to study plants, how you are taught about the natural world, and how in different cultures there's different ways to approach that, and how the more you learn about these different ways, then it shapes how you understand how things work and how your relationship is with plants and animals and people and the community and the planet. And there's so much in here that resonates very strongly with me, and so many things that also I'm like sitting on and really thinking about. And she also talks about her daughters in here, and her daughters are older than mine, and I feel a connection there because she's also a mother of daughters, and there's so much good in this book, and I highly recommend it if you are interested in plants at all, or interested in just learning about thinking differently, learning about asking questions and coming at science with different types of approaches. So yeah, I recommend braiding sweetgrass. So I think that is all I have to share with you today. I know it was a lot to share, and I thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope that you can find rays of sunshine and even belly aching laughter if you can find it. I feel like a good laugh like that, where tears are coming out of your eyes and your stomach hurts from laughing, like those gems are kind of rare finds. And I feel like I said something similar to this a couple years ago at the start of the pandemic, and you know, here we are. But I really hope for you to find those moments of peace, of rest, of calm, and those rays of sunshine, be they literal or figurative. So with that, cheers to being creative. Take care of yourself and your loved ones and your neighbors, and I will talk to you next time.